Brave leopard saves village from dangerous predator. You won't believe how. In a small, tranquil village nestled deep within the African savanna, lived a humble man named Jabari. He was a simple farmer who woke before the sun each day, tending to his fields, nurturing crops with care, and making sure his family had enough to eat. His life, though modest, was filled with the rhythms of nature. The wind rustling through the tall grasses, the soft calls of birds at dawn, and the occasional distant roar of lions that reminded him of the wild world just beyond his fields. Jabari's days were repetitive, but not without purpose. He cherished the peace of his village, where every neighbor was a friend, and the sense of community was strong. Yet, for all his hard work, life wasn't easy. The village, situated near the edge of the wilderness, had always faced threats from wild animals. Lions, hyenas, and even the occasional leopard would wander close to the village, drawn by the scent of livestock or the promise of a meal. Despite the danger, Jabari never complained. He had grown used to it. His heart was full of kindness, and he believed that if he showed respect to the land and the creatures that lived on it, they would respect him in return. But little did Jabari know, his life was about to be forever changed by an unexpected encounter with a creature that would alter the fate of his village in ways he couldn't yet imagine. One quiet evening, as the sun began to dip behind the horizon, Jabari noticed something unusual. His goats, usually calm and grazing in the open fields, were restless. They moved in tight groups, bleating nervously, their eyes wide with fear. Jabari's heart raced as he glanced toward the forest line where the shadows were growing long. He had seen this behavior before. Something was wrong. Suddenly, a loud crack of branches echoed from the trees, and Jabari's pulse quickened. He squinted into the growing darkness, hoping to spot the cause. That's when he saw it. A large, menacing figure creeping between the trees. It was a predator, no doubt about it. But it wasn't a lion or a hyena this time. It was a leopard, its golden coat barely visible against the night. The predator's eyes glinted as it locked onto the herd of goats. Jabari's breath caught in his throat. The village had always been able to handle the occasional wild animal, but a leopard? It was far more dangerous, more cunning. A few goats would not be enough to satiate its hunger, and if it grew bold, it could turn its sights on the village itself. Instinctively, Jabari grabbed a nearby spear, his hands shaking, but he didn't rush to the field immediately. The leopard was still a distance away, and Jabari knew he couldn't just blindly chase it off. It was smarter than that, and it would only return if it wasn't driven away properly. He needed a plan. As he hesitated, a soft rustling came from behind him. A small boy, no older than 8, stood there, his eyes wide with fear. It was young Kazi, the son of his closest neighbor, who had wandered too far from the village. His family had likely sent him to fetch water, but now he had unwittingly found himself caught in the midst of the predator's hunt. Jabari's heart sank. He had to act, quickly. Without thinking of his own safety, he approached Kazi, putting a finger to his lips, signaling him to stay quiet. He couldn't risk the child's life. Gently, he guided Kazi into a small grove of trees, hoping the leopard wouldn't notice them. As they huddled together, Jabari's mind raced. How could he protect this innocent child and his village from the lethal predator on the prowl? Jabari's heart was heavy with the weight of his decision. He couldn't just wait and hope the leopard would leave. The village needed him. The boy needed him. And it wasn't just a predator he was facing. It was the unknown, the danger that lurked in the shadows. What he didn't know yet was that this would be no ordinary encounter. This would be a test of courage, of heart, and of a destiny that was about to unfold in the most unexpected way. Rising suspense. The night grew colder, and the shadows around Jabari and Kazi seemed to stretch unnaturally long, thick with the tension of the approaching danger. Jabari held his breath as he listened for any sign of movement. The only sound was the faint rustle of leaves in the wind and the distant hum of nocturnal creatures stirring to life. His grip tightened around the spear as he cautiously peered through the underbrush, watching for any sign of the leopard. Minutes felt like hours, and the longer they waited, the more Jabari's nerves frayed. The goats had stopped bleeding, and in that eerie silence, he feared the worst. The predator might be stalking closer, its keen senses already aware of their presence. The village was just a short distance away, but Jabari couldn't risk making a noise. If the leopard knew they were there, it would not hesitate to attack. Suddenly, Kazi shifted. Beside him, his small body trembling with fear, Jabari placed a gentle hand on the boy's shoulder, silently urging him to stay still. He knew that Kazi was scared. He could feel the child's pulse racing, but Jabari couldn't let fear overtake him, not when the lives of everyone in the village were at stake. Then, without warning, a rustling came from the tall grass nearby. Jabari's eyes widened as he turned his head sharply. There, standing at the edge of the grove, was the leopard. It was much closer now, its body low to the ground, its eyes glowing with a cold, calculating hunger. The predator was sizing them up, clearly aware of their presence, but it hadn't yet made its move. Jabari's mind raced. He could feel the weight of the situation pressing down on him. His heart beat loudly in his chest, but he kept his movements slow and steady, trying not to provoke the animal. If he acted too quickly, the leopard would be gone in a flash. But if he waited too long, the situation would only get worse. Then, something unexpected happened. From the corner of his eye, Jabari noticed another movement, a flicker of motion in the trees just behind the leopard. It was too fast to be a person, too large to be a bird. The moment of doubt flashed through his mind, and in that split second, the predator seemed to pause, its head turning toward the noise. Jabari's eyes narrowed. Something was amiss. The leopard wasn't alone. Before he could process it further, the trees rustled again, and this time, the silhouette of another figure emerged. It was not another leopard, nor was it any other wild animal Jabari had seen before. This was a massive creature, larger than a lion and with an imposing frame that carried an undeniable air of authority. It was a rare sight, a shadowy figure of the wild that Jabari knew only by reputation. A panther. The panther's eyes gleamed with a predatory hunger as it locked onto the leopard. There was an unmistakable tension in the air, a rivalry between these two apex predators, each vying for dominance over the land. Jabari's pulse quickened as he realized what was happening. The leopard was being challenged for its territory by the panther. In the blink of an eye, the leopard growled, its body tensing as it prepared to defend itself. The panther, unfazed, stepped forward with an air of quiet confidence. It was as if this was no battle for survival but a matter of pride, a fight for control of the savanna's vast, untamed wilderness. Jabari's heart raced as he watched the scene unfold in front of him. Kazi, too, had seen the creatures and now clung to Jabari, his small body trembling with fear. They were caught in the middle of a deadly struggle, one that neither the leopard nor the panther could afford to lose. And neither could Jabari. Jabari's thoughts whirled. The village was vulnerable. The panther was dangerous, and the leopard, though smaller, was no less lethal. If these two predators clashed, it could mean disaster for the village. The goats were only the beginning. If the battle continued, it could draw the attention of more predators, including lions or worse, the pack of hyenas that had been spotted near the village before. The reality hit Jabari hard. He couldn't let this happen. He had to stop them before they destroyed everything. As he surveyed the scene, a sudden surge of courage filled his chest. Jabari knew that this was no longer just about survival. It was about saving his home, his family, and his village. Without a plan, there was no hope. But if he could find a way to keep the predators from clashing, perhaps there was a chance. He turned to Kazi, whispering urgently, "Stay here. Don't move." Jabari's mind raced as he formulated a plan. There was only one thing he could do, something that had never been done before. He would have to confront both predators at once, in a way they never expected. It was a risky gamble, one that could easily go wrong. But Jabari knew it was the only way to protect the village. In the dim light of the savannah night, with the two wild creatures poised for battle before him, Jabari made his decision. He was about to do something no one would believe. A brave, desperate act that would change the fate of the village forever. Climactic reveal and emotional payoff. Jabari's mind was a whirlwind as he silently edged closer to the two predators. The leopard and the panther were locked in a tense standoff, their eyes burning with hostility, muscles coiled in readiness for battle. Jabari knew he couldn't allow either one of them to make the first move. If they fought, the entire village would be in grave danger. He glanced at Kazi, who was huddled behind a thick bush, his wide eyes filled with a mixture of fear and awe. Jabari gave him a reassuring nod, though he knew that if this went wrong, there would be no turning back. It was time to act. Without a second thought, Jabari stepped forward into the clearing, making sure the predators could see him. His heart pounded in his chest, but he kept his expression calm, determined. Slowly, he raised his spear, not in a threatening stance, but as a symbol of defiance, a clear challenge to both the leopard and the panther. The animals froze. The leopard, its sleek body twitching with a mixture of confusion and aggression, was the first to react. It growled low, its hackles rising, warning Jabari to stay back. The panther, however, remained eerily still, its eyes narrowing as it studied Jabari with an unnerving focus. It was as if the panther was deciding whether this human posed a true threat, or if he was simply a nuisance to be ignored. Jabari didn't flinch. He knew that both animals were accustomed to being the dominant forces in the wild, and they weren't used to being challenged. But Jabari's life had been shaped by challenges. Every day he fought to protect his family and his village from the dangers of the wild, and this was no different. "I will not let you harm my people," Jabari said quietly, more to himself than to the animals, his voice steady despite the rising fear. "You both have your place in the world, but not here. Not today." The leopard's low growl echoed across the field, and it started to inch forward, its tail swishing. The panther, sensing an opening, slowly started to circle around Jabari, its large body gliding silently through the grass. It was clear that both predators were calculating their moves, waiting for an opportunity to strike. But then, something happened that no one could have predicted. As Jabari stood his ground, a soft but firm roar echoed through the night, a sound so powerful that it seemed to shake the very earth beneath his feet. It was not the roar of a lion, nor the growl of a hyena, but something far more commanding. The predators paused, their attention drawn to the sound. Jabari turned instinctively, and there, emerging from the tree lean, stood another figure. A massive, regal leopard, its coat marked with the distinct scars of battle and age. This was not a mere predator. This was an alpha, a leader of the wild, known throughout the savannah as the protector of the land. Jabari's breath caught in his throat as he realized who it was. This was no ordinary leopard. It was the legendary creature known as Zuri, the protector of the plains, who had often been spoken of in whispers among the villagers. Zuri was known to keep the peace between the various wild animals, maintaining the delicate balance of nature. The villagers had heard stories of Zuri's power, of how the great leopard had driven off lions and chased hyenas from the territory without ever spilling blood. The leopard and the panther both hesitated, their aggression momentarily diffused. Zuri's presence commanded respect. The panther, though still powerful and intimidating, recognized the authority of the elder leopard and slowly backed away, unwilling to challenge it directly. The smaller leopard, sensing the shift in power, lowered its body and slunk away into the shadows. Jabari watched in awe as Zuri stood tall, a majestic figure of strength and wisdom. The legendary leopard slowly approached Jabari, its eyes softening, almost as if acknowledging his bravery. Jabari's heart swelled with gratitude and respect, realizing that this creature had not only spared him and Kazi, but had also prevented a catastrophe for the village. Without a word, Zuri turned its head and motioned toward the distant savannah. The message was clear. The land was protected, and the predators would leave, for now. The balance had been restored, and Jabari had played a crucial role in that. As Zuri vanished back into the darkness, Jabari stood in stunned silence, his mind racing. The danger had passed, but the weight of what had just occurred was overwhelming. He had faced down not one, but two apex predators, and had been saved by the very creature whose reputation had inspired awe in everyone who had heard the stories. The tension melted from his body, and he turned to Kazi, who was still wide-eyed and trembling. Jabari smiled softly and pulled the boy into a gentle hug, relieved that they were safe. He knew that their lives, and the lives of everyone in the village, had been saved because of one thing: courage. Not the courage of the leopard or the panther, but his own. The next morning, as the village awoke to the light of the sun, Jabari's story spread like wildfire. The elders praised him for his bravery, and the people celebrated the fact that they were still safe. But Jabari knew that his role in this story was more than just a simple act of bravery. It was a reminder of the delicate balance between humanity and the wild, and how sometimes, in the face of fear, a single act of courage could change the course of an entire community. Reflective conclusion. From that day forward, Jabari's life was never quite the same. The village, once a quiet place on the edge of the savannah, was now filled with a sense of wonder and respect for the wild creatures that shared their world. Jabari had not only saved Kazi and the village, but he had also earned the respect of the creatures of the savannah, something that very few humans could ever claim. Every time Jabari walked through the fields now, he remembered that night, the bravery that had risen in him, and the lesson that kindness, respect, and courage could change the world. He had always believed that the land, the people, and the animals could coexist peacefully, and now he knew that his belief was not misplaced. As he stood on the edge of the savannah one morning, watching the sun rise over the plains, Jabari realized that sometimes, the most unexpected heroes come from the humblest of places. He had never asked for reward or recognition. He had only wanted to protect what he loved. And in doing so, he had learned a valuable truth. The world is shaped not by the wild forces of nature, but by the hearts of those willing to stand up for what is right. If you believe in the power of courage and kindness, like this story, share your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe for more incredible tales from the wild. Reflective conclusion. As the days passed, Jabari felt a deep sense of peace settle over him. The village, which had once been filled with whispers of fear and uncertainty about the dangers of the wild, now felt more united and stronger than ever. The story of that night was told and retold, each telling more incredible than the last. But Jabari knew that the true power of that night wasn't just in the bravery displayed or the legend of the mighty leopard. It was in the realization that every living being, human, animal, or even the land itself, had a role to play in the balance of nature. Jabari's heart swelled with pride as he watched the villagers move through their daily lives, now with a renewed respect for the animals that shared the savannah with them. The wild creatures were no longer just threats to be feared, but partners in the delicate harmony of the land. There was an unspoken understanding among the people, a connection to the earth that Jabari had always believed in, but now it felt even stronger. Life for Jabari and his family returned to its humble rhythms. He still worked the fields, still tended to his goats, but each day felt a little different. There was a newfound peace in the air, and the knowledge that the village was protected, by his bravery, yes, but also by the unseen forces of the savannah that worked together to keep the balance. Jabari had proven to himself that courage, when paired with compassion and respect for the wild, could move mountains, or, in his case, save a village from destruction. As he sat outside his small home one evening, looking out over the horizon, he couldn't help but smile. The lesson of that fateful night would stay with him forever. Bravery wasn't always about fighting. Sometimes it was about standing your ground, making a choice to protect what mattered, and having the heart to act when it counted most.